Guys, we have reached another landmark. We are now at over 1,100 subscribers, and this is the celebration video, my top 10 Megatrons in my collection. It's coming out before the 1,000 subscriber special. The Thundercracker video took a little bit longer to make than I would have thought. It will be up next week. However, this is a little bit easier because it's basically just like, let me gather up the Megatrons and put them in front of the camera. So, we're doing the 1,100 special before the 1,000 subscriber special. Think of it as a delay in the season finale, I guess? I don't know. But in terms of this video, it is the top 10 Megatrons in my collection. It's only Megatrons that I personally own right now at this moment. There are a lot of good Megatrons out there. There's a lot of great Megatrons I just don't have, so thus I can't put it on the list. But just know, it's my personal opinion, my personal collection, and at the end of the day, we're just talking about my favorite Transformer out of the big four. Because when it comes to Starscream, Optimus, Bumblebee, and Megs is usually my favorite character out of the four, and he often has some pretty interesting toys, but also usually the toys that have the most issues out of those four. At number 10, we have the Deluxe Earthspark Megatron. I absolutely adore all the designs to come out of Earthspark, even if a couple of them are a touch wonky for my taste, and Megatron is no exception. He has one of the best deluxes from the line. Even though I'm not big on the panels on his forearms, the overall look of the figure is just undeniably solid, and it's basically as close to Autobot Megatron from IDW we're ever going to get into animation, probably. I especially love just how different his head design is compared to most Megatrons. His helicopter mode is solid enough. It does bring animated Megatron to mind, and at the end of the day, it's just a good Megatron that's still really easy to find, readily available, very easy when it comes to price point. You can't really complain in any way, shape, or form about it, and that's a big reason as to why I like it so much. You don't have to spend a fortune for it, it's not a nightmare to transform, it's not impossible to find, it's kind of just around. And it's a perfectly serviceable Megatron. At number 9, we gotta talk about an old friend. This was my childhood Megatron, the Universe Legends G2 Megatron. Now, he might not look like much, he might not have the best articulation in the world, but what he does have is the fact that this was the only Megatron I actually owned as a kid. Megatron, he usually had Leader or Voyager toys. Those were price points I could get for birthdays, maybe Christmas. This was the Megatron that was leading my childhood Decepticon team, and the transformation, very simple. It's literally just the G2 transformation. I say that, I immediately messed it up because I didn't fold the legs first. There we are. But it's good. It's a decent little tank, it's a simple transformation, and the thing I love most is just how much presence he has in his robot mode. Like here, we get him back to robot mode, and you can see, he just has this permanent power stance. He looks like he has so much more energy and attitude than he actually does, and that's why I like him so much. Given that Legends G2 Megatron was my childhood Megatron, it probably shouldn't come to any surprise that G2 Megatrons are all my wheelhouse. At number 8, it's the original G2 Megatron. Look at this guy. A massive tower of power. He is absolutely massive. He towers over even modern leader class figures. He comes with electronics, has a couple of accessories, a tank turret on his shoulder that fires, a color scheme that goes insane. He even has a voice box. But mine has a couple of issues. Yeah. That's what happens when it gets burnt out eventually. It just tries to do the whole line in a second, so it sounds like a chipmunk chucking, but, you know, it's fine. I really adore how G2 Megatron looks. For my money, whenever we get, like, redone G1 Megatrons, reissues, re-releases, I would much rather see this guy. And if they ever do a Missing Link Megatron, even though they're probably going to do a G1 Megatron or just do a completely new toy that turns to a tank, I would prefer a Missing Link version of this guy, because he's great, and awesome, and perfect, and spectacular, and he has big stick right here, because he speaks softly and carries a big stick. Who knew that Megatron liked Teddy Roosevelt so much? Yeah, we just had a little trilogy of G2 Megatrons, because at number 7, I have the Super 7 Ultimates G2 Megatron, non-transforming, but what this guy has, that so many other G2 Megatrons lack, is he is going after the Marvel comic book appearance. But you had multiple weapons, multiple head sculpts, doesn't transform, but he's decently well articulated. He is Voyager sized. I say Voyager, really, he's bulkier than most Voyagers you can get nowadays. He's a good, solid Megatron for your shelf. If you have a G2 shelf like I do, where you've been putting all the Generations repaints, this is the Megatron I put onto it because he meshes. It works. He's a perfect Megatron for that mold. And seeing as how the only G2 Megatrons we ever get out of mainline nowadays are just repainted G1 guys, this is probably as close as we're ever going to get to a Megatron in proper scale with modern articulation that actually is designed to be the G2 version of the design. At number 7 is the first Voyager Megatron I would have ever owned, the Titan's Return Megatron. Now, this guy is rough, he's not all that well painted, he has sticker details which are always awful, but you can't deny how fun he is. He's a Titan Master, he turns into a jet and a tank, so triple changer. He is the guy making the case for every Blitzwing should be turned into Megatron eventually because it really does work. I love this figure. I love how the vehicle modes look, I love how the robot mode looks, I love how the entire thing plays. I would have loved to have seen Takara paint this figure better, but unfortunately when they did it, they turned it into G2 Hero Megatron. Still a great figure, but just imagine this with more dazzling reds, blacks, and a stronger gray. It probably could have been something really special. But now, it's just one of the more fun oddity Megatrons. This is my 5th favorite Megatron, and it's also the Megatron that disappointed me the most at the same time. You see, I love 30 MDLX, and I still really like this figure, but Megatron is my least favorite out of all the figures they've done so far. In all honesty, I think it's because I got Starscream before I got him. Starscream just blew me away. Megatron is good, he's about on par with Optimus, but because he was kind of a drop-off from Starscream, in my head, this is just a lesser figure. But it isn't a lesser figure. It is covered in paint, has amazing detailing. You can see how they've gone in and they did the, what's it called? The panel lining around the helmet, throughout all the body. You have great colors on the go. This is just the G1 Megatron design made to look G2, but I think it actually works better in G2 colors. The MDLX G1 Megatron just looks way too flat. With all that said, I do think this figure is amazing. It's the best articulated Megatron we've ever had. It's a great looking Megatron that doesn't transform. I think I was just expecting too much of the guy, but I can still recognize he is a fantastic toy. Number 4 is a pet favorite. For my money, this is the best G1 Megatron has ever looked in toy form. This is the Revoltech Megatron. It is incredibly poseable, it stands about 5 inches tall, and I just love the look of this guy. Even the head sculpt, it's a bit too small for what it's supposed to be, but it still really works for the overall presence of the figure. My favorite thing is it's hard to get Megatron in a normal standing pose, so every pose you do get him in has this nature to just look so alive, energetic, and organic. I love how poseable this figure is, I love how he feels in hand, I love his paint. Out of every Revoltech they ever did, for Transformers that is, I think this is my favorite one. At number 3 is my display Megatron, my Netflix Siege Megatron, Walmart exclusive. Now, this mold is not great. I don't like the tank mode, I don't like the transformation, the articulation, rather rough. But this figure has such an incredible paint job that it actually kind of helps block all that out. It's a figure that is trading on style over substance, it's smoke and mirrors, but the silver here, this incredibly shiny and yet also dinged and dirty silver with the various battle damage and the scuffed up Decepticon logo, this is a great looking Megatron. It's obviously a figure I would love to have a better version of one day. Like, I'm looking forward to a potential Studio Series 86 Megatron. I still think every Generations Megatron we've ever received always has some type of glaring issue. This one's is, again, the transformation. But at the end of the day, it is a really nice Megs, and I had a hard time justifying putting it any lower than number 3 on this spot. At number 2, I gotta give some love to Armada with the new Legacy Armada Universe Megatron. Now, this is honestly one of my 2 favorite Megatron designs. When I close my eyes and just think Megatron, this is one of the designs that always pops to mind first. I love everything about it. The kind of cockroach ears, his huge shoulder pylons, the color scheme, the fact that his fusion cannon is now attached to his back, making me think it's even more powerful now, because look, this is all just a power source for it now. I love this figure. The transformation's great, the tank mode looks on point, it is so screen accurate to the Armada cartoon, Plus, at the end of the day, David Kaye is my favorite voice of Megatron. So many things are going into me liking this figure, more or less based on nostalgia. Armada was basically my first Transformers cartoon. It was the first Transformers DVD I ever owned. I'm always going to have a soft spot for it. That's the reason why Starscream was so high up on my list, Armada Starscream did. That's the reason why Hotshot is a character I always want to make videos about. And that's the reason why this Megatron almost made it to number 1. I just had one figure that I thought barely eked out in front of it, but just know, this guy is spectacular. At number 1, it's my favorite Megatron design, one of my favorite Megatron depictions, and my second favorite Megatron voice. We have the Planet X Pluto, a third-party version of the Fall of Cybertron Megatron. I just love this figure. It's exactly what I want out of a Megatron. You can see the massive, massive shoulders and the bulky arms, and yet when you look at the rest of the body, you can tell he's athletic, he's quick, he can move around. His fusion cannon is massive, but it doesn't weigh him down. He has a wonderful tank mode that looks just as nightmarish as the robot mode does. He has a wonderful head sculpt. My only regret is that I got this version just a month before they announced the metallic version. Metallic version looks even prettier. Maybe one day I'll pick it up, but quite frankly, even without that shiny silver paint, I love this figure so much that it became my number 1 Megatron. For a long time, this was just my display Megatron. It was the only Megatron I felt like I really needed to own, aside from a couple for nostalgic reasons. But I can't deny, for me personally, in spite of some of the issues this figure has, not great articulation, issues with his hips, I still really, 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 really love him. Bringing my top 3 Megatrons back in, I think this really encapsulates why I like Megatron so much more than the other big 4. His designs are always the ones that Hasbro experiments with. Every Optimus Prime kind of looks like Optimus Prime, you know? Bumblebee is always going to look like Bumblebee. Even Starscream, even though they got a little bit experimental with him in the 2000s, now every Starscream follows a beaten path. But even now, in the age of the evergreen design, Megatron's the design that they try to have fun with. They make him more monstrous, or they make him more noble looking, they make him smoother, they make him more angular. It changes so often, to the point where there's a handful of Megatrons that you would be hard-pressed to even recognize as Megatron when you first see them. Just look at our Armada boy right there. That is why I love Megatron. That is why I love these figures. And that's why these 3 are my absolute favorites. You get to see just how wild his designs have gotten over the many, 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 many years of Transformers. But guys, thank you for 1,100 subscribers. I'm really looking forward to getting the Thundercracker video out before too much longer. But you have been phenomenal with me. I hope you enjoyed this video. And hey, maybe one day we'll do the minifigures of Megatron and I'll go friggin' insane.